Yipee-Ki-Yay, Mr. Falcon.
So, the other night, I don't know. I want to bounce this off you.
Yeah.
I was out with the wife. We're having a couple drinks. We're on vacation. We actually got a couple minutes away from the kids, and we were just enjoying like being alone in a bar and able to talk about grown-up things for once. And
Like your super not nerdy movie podcast you do with your dorky friend.
well, funny you should mention that. Well, they have a TV. It was just like a beach bar, and there's a TV on in the background, and I look up and Wedding Crashers comes on, and I was like, oh man, Wedding Crashers. And for a minute, I had trouble like figuring out which movie it was, because I saw the actors. I'm like, wait a minute, which one is this? And I start like running through all the comedies in my head from around that time. And then eventually I figured out it was Wedding Crashers, but I'm like, my God, yeah, there were a lot of movies in that vein that came out all in that time. I was like, God, what was
early
this?
2000s, yeah.
Yeah, I said to my wife, I was like, what is this, the aughts? Was this from the aughts? And she's like, yeah, I think so.
Nobody says that. Nobody uses that for that decade, and it upsets me.
They should, man. I
I
like
do.
it.
I like it.
Yeah, we're using it. The aughts.
It worked 100 years ago. It works now.
And it got me thinking, like, there was a huge list of comedies, like a whole just parade of these comedy movies that came out during that time. And I was trying to think, like, what was with the explosion? Because, like, I'm a 90s kid, man. I'm obsessed with the 90s. I'm of the opinion that all the best shit, no matter what you're talking about, came, like, it came from the 90s. Like, music, movies, television, sports, all kinds of stuff. But then I was trying to think back on some of my favorite 90s comedies, and I was like, wow, this list from the aughts is impressive. Like, I wonder if this is the thing that in my mind beats the 90s for, like, content,
Okay.
So,
Well,
I
like,
mean, yeah.
So you guys made a list?
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do with like some of the actors, but just some of the heavy hitters.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was the Apatow explosion. Like, he started
Right.
making movies in the aughts with Superbad, and then going from there, there was the actors associated with that. Seth Rogen made how many fucking movies?
Yeah, he
Knocked Up.
He made a lot. But
You
to rattle a few off, you had like you said, Superbad came out, Knocked Up came out, 40-Year-Old Virgin was from that time, Zoolander came out, Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah, that was in the aughts.
Yeah, all of this was in the aughts.
I thought that was later. I thought Sarah Marshall was later. Wow.
Was it?
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was like 2010 or 2009 or something. But yeah, you had Wedding Crashers,
Old school,
Dodgeball, Old School, Anchorman.
Yeah, Anchorman. Yeah,
Pineapple
did you see the Hangover
Express. I did not say it, but it did. I believe. Yep, the Hangover came out in the aughts.
Yeah.
Just all these, and the thread here, the reason I kind of like lump these movies together is like it's a lot of the same actors, but they're all movies that were like super, super quotable, and that we watched the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Because they were, this was like prime DVD time, We had all this stuff on DVD.
That's true too. Blockbuster was still a thing. Like, yeah, and comedies, I think the Apatow thing, I think Superbad really started it and made comedies an event kind of movie. Because comedies in the 90s, unless they were for kids or tweens, they weren't events.
They weren't
usually.
blockbusters.
They were like cult phenomenons because you had the Farrelly brothers doing their thing, and that was kind of this weird, darker, gross out kind of stuff. You know, it had a more narrower appeal, like a lot of things in the '90s. You know, there wasn't so much homogenization, right? But you got blockbuster comedies in the aughts, like you didn't see, and you also still had like '90s comedic actors still doing their thing, like you said, Zoolander. You know, that's what Luke Wilson still doing his thing, and fucking everyone's in that. Will Ferrell, and of course,
Was that
fucking
Owen Wilson, right?
yeah,
Is that
whatever,
Owen?
yeah. Yeah,
Whatever.
wow, that one.
Oh wow, yeah, that's
And of
great.
course Ben Stiller, right? So, and Ben Stiller, he did what the fuck else did he do in the aughts? Tropic Thunder, he did that,
Meet the Parents.
which was epic. Yeah, Meet the Parents was in the aughts. That's true. That's true. And you had Jason Segel doing some stuff. Like you
Jason
said,
Segel had like a
forgetting
weird
Sarah
little,
Marshall, role models. He did with the Rudd, with the
Yeah.
Paul Rudd.
Wait,
that was
was that Jason Segel?
Oh no, that was. I'm
That
thinking
was-
of. I'm thinking of. I Love You, Man.
I
Sorry.
love you, man. Yo,
That was
movie
also in the
funny
aughts.
as hell.
That was also in the aughts. So was Role Models. Role Models
Role
was in the aughts.
Models
That's the
was
one
the
with
aughts.
Sean William Scott and the Rudd,
That's him.
which is also hilarious.
Yeah, you had
We got a trivia question off that movie.
a trivia question. Oh yeah,
Dan and our
you
buddies.
did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, well, it was our team.
Well,
Shit.
you got that. I had
I
no
got it.
clue.
I don't know how the fuck everyone. I pulled this so far out of my ass. The question was, basically we
was a
needed to know
quote.
what Jane. Yeah, but we knew. I knew the quote. I knew it was Jane Lynch who said it, but we also needed the character's name. And she was the drug counselor woman, a side part, great part. She's fucking hilarious in that movie. I don't know why I remembered her name was Gail.
Well, what was more impressive too was like they give the quote. It was just like, oh yeah, you know what I used to have for breakfast? Cocaine.
Cocaine.
You know what I had for lunch? Cocaine. And then I look at you. I'm just ready to give up. I'm like, I don't know this. I knew it was Jane Lynch, but I didn't know the character's name. And you had your head in your hands. And I was like, I guess he doesn't know it either. And then just under your breath, you went, Gail.
Did I really?
Yeah, I went, what? And you went, Gail. I think it's Gail. I was like, shit. I was like, I don't have a name, so I'm going to write Gail. I have no choice but to trust you. And
I had
God
been
damn
drinking a bit, and that was toward the end of the game. But I was certain. I felt it.
it came from like deep within you, from the depths. You weren't even
You know-
consciously saying it.
You're right. There's a lot of movies on this list that you just ran down that I and my wife and I have rewatched over and over again. Like Anchorman. Duh.
Anchorman,
A lot of
God.
people have. Dodgeball. I have seen way too many times. Superbad. Yeah.
Yep.
Pineapple
Wedding
Express.
Crashers.
Yeah.
Oh, Pineapple Express. Yeah.
Old school. Jesus, that's one of the old repeat ones.
That
from
was
when we were younger.
my OG Infinite Repeat movie. That was the one we've talked about this before, where you had the DVD and it had that
fucking
menu
menu.
music.
Yeah.
And we
And there were
would pass
boobs.
out. There were
Yeah.
boobs right in the menu. We would pass out. That thing would be playing on repeat, and it would like color your dreams until you finally summoned the strength to crawl across the floor to turn the TV off.
When The Hangover was new, we watched that a lot. We saw that for the first time on our honeymoon, my wife and I. We
Oh, yeah?
rented it in the hotel. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you told me in Vermont,
We hadn't
right?
seen it. Yeah, we were, it had been out a little while, but it was still in the hotel. That was so fucking funny when it came out. My God. 40-Year-Old Virgin. Watched that a whole bunch. I love Tropic Thunder. I've seen it 100 times.
40-Year-Old Virgin was one of those movies that you quoted it all the time.
All
Like,
the time.
Just so quotable.
All the time. We watched Zoolander all the time in college. Almost as much as Anchorman in my weird circle. One of my weird circles. I was never that big of a fan of Step Brothers as other people.
Oh, I
but
like Step Brothers.
I've seen it a lot. I like it. I've seen it a lot. I like Will Ferrell movies.
Boats
Just
and
I like other
hoes.
ones better. Talladega Nights, I've seen a lot. I've seen that a lot.
Yeah, that was one I didn't like as much. If I had to pick up between
I
those two, I'm watching Step Brothers.
That one tickles me. There's something about that character. I've met that dude. You know, like I've met a lot of the dudes in that movie.
Yeah.
Not Borat, not the French guy that Borat plays. I've never met him. He was weird.
Ricky Bobby.
No, Ricky Bobby's Will Ferrell.
Oh yeah.
Gerard Depardieu. I don't know what his fucking name. The French guy, Frenchie.
I forget
Grandma's
his name.
Boy was in the aughts.
Grandma's Boy.
Grandma, you introduced me to Grandma's. You and your wife made me and my wife watch it that night, and we were like, "What the fuck? They're making us watch an Adam Sandler production movie.
Yeah.
What the fuck?" And it turned out to be one of the funniest things we've ever seen.
Yeah, were we wrong?
No, you steered us right. I remember we laughed our asses off that night. Oh my god,
absurd.
it's a great movie. It's a great fucking movie. You guys just discovered that? We were young, man.
I don't know. I think my wife's
None of us
brother,
were married then.
my brother-in-law saw it and made us watch it. It was like, you guys got to see this.
It's a great movie. Kevin Nealon, I always forget, is in it, and he is so
Mr.
fucking
Cheezel.
funny. Hey, what's up, Mr. Cheezel? How you doing, Dante? Your ass is tanner than my face. My wife and I have adopted so many little sayings and shit from that movie that I can't even think of them because we don't register them anymore.
Yeah,
They
they're
just become
part of your
part of us.
vocabulary.
Fuck, man.
How much do clothes cost in the Matrix?
Fucking, she used to say, "Yeah, monkey, play my head all the time." I don't know why.
Jonah Hill's in that movie. This is like one of his
Yeah.
first movies. And he's
Yeah,
like,
he's young and
so-and-so sucked
plump.
on his first titty for 13 hours.
13 hours. Baby loves milk.
God, it was so dumb. Another one
Fucking,
that flew under the radar. That like I saw this with no expectations. Did you ever see Idiocracy?
yeah, of course.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I
Judge,
just,
man.
that was just on one day, and I was like, "What is this?" And I watched.
It's on the
it.
news every day right now. Have you not
Yeah,
seen it?
we're in it,
Jesus
man.
Christ, man.
That-
That movie was so on. Do you know? You want us to? Something I learned about
It's
that
like
recently.
prophetic.
The costume designer went looking for shoes for the movie,
Okay.
and they came across this brand new company that hadn't even launched yet. And they figured that they're like, this is the ugliest footwear. No one would ever wear this. So it'll make it unique. You know, it'll give it a unique look. They were Crocs. It was Crocs.
They're all
Everyone in
wearing
that
Crocs?
movie wears Crocs. Yeah.
But before
watch
Crocs were big.
They hadn't even been released yet. They got early.
Man,
Yeah, no one. They didn't even have a name yet.
that's
It
crazy.
was like the first time anyone ever saw Crocs was that movie. And like,
That's
because
some
no one will
crystal
ever wear
ball
these
shit.
ugly things. Yeah.
That's incredible.
Fucking, I was at a Phillies game. Like every kid in the goddamn stadium had Crocs on, and a number of the adults.
They're everywhere, man. Everyone.
I'm wearing a
wears them.
goddamn pair right now, but I'm in my house. They're great.
Oh.
They're great as house shoes and slippers, and they're great camp shoes, man.
I do
Just because
not
you can't get
own
them
any.
wet. You can't. They don't get wet. Like they don't soak up anything. They're good. They're cozy.
My favorite low-key joke in that whole movie is just it's a perfect visual representation of the decline of society. It's the Fuddruckers sign. They show the Fuddruckers sign,
Buttfuckers.
and it just morphs into
Buttfuckers.
fuckrudders, and then turns right into buttfucker.
Didn't that
It's
chain
like,
go
yeah,
out of
that
business?
tracks. Yeah, I don't think
think they went
Fuddruckers is
under.
the place anymore.
There used to be a couple on the way to the shore, different points of the shore. I remember it was a stop. It was a stop on the way to Seaside. Seaside. Zombieland. That was a
Zombieland's
good one.
great. Now I
was a good one.
I struggled with whether or not to put this on the list because that is like it could be considered a genre film. It's a zombie movie.
Well,
Well,
there's
it's
Shaun of the
funny
Dead
as hell.
too. Shaun of the Dead's
same
definitely
thing.
a comedy, but same thing.
That
Same
movie's
thing.
amazing. I love Shaun of
Yeah.
the Dead.
And you
That-
got Scary Movie on here. I love that. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that was an
Scary
odd.
Movie. Yeah, that was great. Great, right on time too for everything that it was making fun of. Needed to be made fun of. Especially, I Knew What You Did Last Summer.
Oh,
Every
God.
jab they took at that was just wonderful. Scream was, you know, that was seminal. So that had to be made fun of too. It was great.
Yeah.
It was great. But Anchorman, Jesus Christ, man, what a something about that fucking movie. Just the time it came along and the tone it struck and just made it infinitely rewatchable. Everyone quoting the Christ out of it.
Yeah, man. And
oof, boy.
I don't think we considered this at the time when I was making this list, but we're talking about it now. Yeah, I think some of it has to do with the fact that like we all had DVD players.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
like DVD players were everywhere. They had hit.
But
everyone
we had
them.
tape players before that, but we didn't. It was also that we weren't at home anymore. A lot of us.
Yeah, so you were in
I think,
college
too.
dorms and apartments and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and
we had our
they
own DVD
They had
players.
become affordable.
Yeah, it wasn't the family VCR. It was your own DVD player in your room that you didn't have to rewind. No more fucking rewinding, man.
Yeah,
That was kind of cool.
and if you didn't have cable, you just put on Anchorman.
The first DVD player I ever had was my roommate's PS2 in college, freshman year.
That'll do it.
So I started renting them from Blockbuster because I had a card. And yeah, I had like 7 by the end of the year and had to buy a cheapo one of my own. But that was back when you could get like, remember they used to sell these really small silver DVD players that everyone had in their dorm. They were like $70 and they lasted for like 6 or 7 months.
Yeah, but they died.
Yeah, something in them would die. It would start skipping, but they lasted a while, enough for a semester or two. And yeah, everyone had a DVD player, man. That had to have something to do with it, for sure. For sure.
And this,
Everyone had a copy too in their room. Like everyone had Anchorman. Everyone had Office Space, which was from the 90s, but
right. Well, yeah, and it's
Pineapple
not to say,
Express.
It's not
Yeah.
to say that the '90s stuff
No,
wasn't as good, but it
it's
was.
very different.
It was very different. It wasn't. Yeah, I think a lot of these ones we just rattled off have like a couple common threads. They have a lot of.
Rewatchable.
They're very
Yeah.
rewatchable. They're very like rapid fire quotable. They have a lot of the same like groups of actors. The same like core groups of people are in them, and they're all just like raunchy dude comedies.
Yeah, but they also don't go to that gross out level. Like
No.
you always felt totally fine watching them with like female friends, and
Yeah,
girlfriends and
It's
stuff.
raunchy, but it's not gross. And you look at like
Right.
the 90s, and like The Mask is on there, which is
Yeah, well, let's take a run through some of the 90s,
Yeah, yeah.
and let's see what jumps out at us as how different they were. So I came up with this
yes,
just
you did.
off the cuff, and so I remember this was a huge one in the 90s. Was There's Something About Mary? It was the Farrelly brothers' first, big comedy. Ben Stiller's big breakout comedy. Cameron Diaz's first breakout thing. Like she was in The Mask, but she was just kind of like eye candy in that. She actually got to like have a personality in Something About Mary, titular
Right.
Mary. Hilarious, right? But again, it was a little dark in
It
certain
was.
ways. And it was pretty gross. Like it leaned on
Oh,
getting a
God.
ball sack caught in a zipper really hard.
How'd you get the beans above the Frank?
Yeah. There's some serious mental disability jokes that wouldn't fly today.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gross out stuff. Fucking what's his name and his weird pussy sores and shit.
Oh, and then
gross.
just the hair gel.
Yeah, the whole hair gel thing, the
That
cum in
was
the hair. Yeah.
the ultimate gross out scene.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big representative image from that movie was Cameron Diaz with her hair. And if you knew the movie,
If
you
you
knew that it was
knew.
jizz. You knew that it was jizz in her hair. And but like it was weird because normally before that I think you had comedies that were about sex that were for adults, right? But they were usually pretty grounded and realistic, you know. Like Bachelor Party comes to mind,
Right.
you know, whilst raunchy, they weren't goofy in that fantasy world kind of way that Something About Mary is. Whereas that blended that shit. It was like this weird, unreality thing where there's dudes playing guitars and like acting as a Greek chorus and shit. And it got away with a lot of goofy stuff while also being raunchy and very much for adults, which was kind of a new tone, but definitely not as appealing to everyone as, say, Superbad or 40-Year-Old Virgin.
Oh God, yeah.
All right, so running through, this is one of my favorites. What About Bob?
What About Bob is great.
Love that, but again, dark. A
Yeah.
little dark.
Very
a little dark,
dark.
right? Great movie. A little dark. Encino Man. A lot of people hated Pauly Shore. So, what are you going to do? But, also it was for teenagers. Let's be honest. Half Baked. Classic stoner movie.
Yeah.
Little dark.
It was like the new Cheech and Chong.
Yeah. Still adult. Very adulty. Like, for, almost adults. And dark. Then you got like you mentioned before, The Mask. So you had almost all of Jim Carrey's hard-hitting comedy catalog in the 90s. You had The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and Liar Liar. I think Ace Ventura 2 also came out before the 90s were over. So that's a lot of Jim Carrey.
That is a lot of Jim Carrey.
But what also you had to balance out that goofiness was you had the bulk of Kevin Smith's good stuff in the 90s.
Right.
You had Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy. We don't have to debate about Mallrats or whatever. It's funny.
It's
And
a
it
funny
was
movie.
the most direct comedy of that era of movies that he made, too. Like, that was a straight-up comedy. So, yeah, but again, those are very indie, very 90s, very kind of a little gross, better vocabulary, but raunchy, definitely raunchy in what they say mostly rather than what they do, I don't know, Swingers. I guess you could consider that a
Swingers?
comedy. I don't know.
I don't know, man. That movie is funny, but I don't think that's a comedy.
Yeah, it's
in
like
the traditional sense.
like a dramedy, I guess. Analyze This. That was a mass appeal comedy. That was De Niro
Yeah.
getting into comedy. Billy Crystal, old heads. A lot of grown-ups liked that movie. And it did happen right before The Sopranos, too. So you could kind of blame it for that. The whole idea of a mobster going to a shrink. You know what else you had? You had Adam Sandler's early movies in the 90s.
Yeah. Those were huge.
Billy
I think
Madison,
those-
Happy Gilmore.
Those
Yeah.
fit the mold of like what you would stack up against the aughts.
I guess, but I don't. To me, they're kind of on the Jim Carrey side because they're so fucking goofy.
Yeah,
I
they're really
hated
out
them.
there.
I actually like them more now than I used to. Like I used to fucking hate. I still can't watch Billy Madison. I always hated that
I
movie.
me neither. I never. My wife and her brother were obsessed with it. They would just howl, and I'm sitting there like, I
hate
can't
it.
stand this movie. I like Happy Gilmore. That movie's
Yeah.
funny. So
It was hard not to like that. I always liked Happy Gilmore. I liked The Wedding Singer when that came out.
Wedding Center was great.
Yeah, that's in the 90s. That was in the 90s. That was when he stopped being so goofy when he did. I think that was his first like adult comedy that he made. Um, yeah, I don't know. It still holds up, and everybody was in it. You know, that was
Oh
great.
yeah.
Drew Barrymore was great. Um, all the side characters are so fucking funny. That's why that
God.
movie works so good. Billy Idol was in it before his face got all weird just before.
Steve Buscemi's in that movie.
There's the drunk brother giving this speech. And those awful tuxedos, man. I had to wear a fucking awful tuxedo like that when I was a kid. I was the ring bearer in my uncle's wedding, and his colors were light gray and pink.
Oh boy.
And
Yeah.
I had a ruffled shirt with a pink cummerbund and a pink bow tie and a gray tux, man. A light gray tux.
That sounds heinous.
It looked goofy on a kid. Let me tell you, those adults looked fucking weird. And so yeah, there's plenty in that movie that, and that was weird too, because it was a 90s movie about the 80s.
Yeah.
And that might have been the first
nostalgia
80s
trip.
nostalgia movie. It was weird at the time to me. But now you can't tell because you don't know when it was made. Office Space, I mentioned before. That was in the 90s. Again, dark. The whole thing. The whole thing happens because of a shrink dies of a heart attack in the middle of hypnotizing a guy. And then the office burns. It's dark. There's darkness. A guy gets hit by a fucking truck and is all busted up. He's going to jump to conclusions, but he can't jump. He can't jump anywhere. And he's all fucked up. He thinks he's coming back from that. He's out of his mind. He's old as shit, and he's got pins in him. It's not good. Wayne's World, though. Wayne's World.
Yeah, Wayne's World
huge.
Was huge.
Excuse me, because you did have this. This was the era of the SNL comedies when they actually made some that were worth watching again. But for the first time, they were straight up SNL properties. Like, you had Belushi and all those guys making those movies in the 80s. They were from SNL, but you got, Wayne's World was a sketch on Saturday Night Live that they turned into a fucking movie. And for better or worse, they kept doing it with other properties.
Like A Night at the Roxbury.
Like Night at the Roxbury and that Tim Meadows one.
Oh, The Ladies Man.
Ladies Man. Yeah.
Oh, it's lady.
There had to have been other decent ones, right? Like that Molly Shannon one.
Superstar.
Yeah, good God Almighty. Yeah, because Tommy Boy wasn't. That was just David Spade and Chris Farley, but that was original, that was the 90s.
Yeah.
That and Black Sheep. I love Tommy Boy. That was the right age for me. I laughed my ass off at that stupid movie. American Pie. American Pie was that's up there as that's a 90s comedy right there, man.
American Pie came out in what? 99?
Yeah, toward the end, because all the sequels were
and it kind of like set
after.
the tone for the type of that was like a blockbuster. That was like the first big blockbuster comedy I can remember.
Yeah.
Where people were flocking to the theater to see this goofy, high school age comedy. And it reminds you a lot of like Superbad, just college or high school kids behaving horribly and just doing funny. Yeah, it's the same setup.
Yeah, and it's a bit grosser than Superbad.
Oh yeah, it was a total gross out. I mean, I don't know. Like you'd argue,
and sexual. Like
Superbad has one of the grossest things I've seen in a comedy.
Yeah, but I think what, the period blood thing?
Yeah. I didn't want to be the one to say it. But
fucking a pie is pretty fucking gross, but also Stifler drinks like jizz, doesn't he?
I don't remember that.
Or piss. It's piss. It's piss. Yeah, it's piss.
Gross.
American Pie was definitely hornier than Superbad.
Yes.
for sure. As far as teen comedies go, Superbad was pretty horny though. There was a lot. Yeah, it was pretty horny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, a movie can't be about teenage boys without being really horny. Although all the teenage boys in American Pie are like 24.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they are.
They all look so old. Even now, looking at it as an old man, they still look old for high school. But that was funny, man. It freaked people out when it came out. Like, everyone had to see it. Everyone had to see the Pie Fucker movie. Yeah, and that was 99, man. We were in high school. That was our high school comedy. That was our well, Animal House is about college, but whatever.
No, yeah.
So what else?
Here's the thread. You had a lot of. Here's what I'm seeing. You had a lot of cool stuff in the '90s, a lot of good ones. But I think like the reason that the aughts stands out in my head, I think number one we said is because of like when they came out and when we had access to them. The stuff was new when we were able to buy our own DVDs, and we weren't at home where we could watch whatever the hell we wanted. But also, you can boil these movies down to just like they're just dude movies, and you change the scenario. It's just a bunch of stupid, like just guy jokes. Like Dodgeball is a bunch of dudes playing dodgeball. Wedding Crashers is dudes crashing weddings. Superbad, dudes in high school. Pineapple Express, dudes smoking pot. Old School. It's just
Yeah.
And then you look at the '90s ones; they're all over the place. You know.
Yeah.
Like Ace
really
Ventura,
are.
Pet Detective, hilarious,
Yeah.
but tonally, just like there's no thread tonally between any of these. But there's this is like the
Because
thread
I don't
that
think you had
I
a
feel
dominant-
between all the aughts ones.
Like, I don't think you had a dominant comedy, maker.
Well, yeah.
Like Harold Ramis is kind of, throttled back in the 90s. He didn't do that much anymore. He wasn't
Groundhog
that.
Day,
Yeah, Groundhog Day was huge, but,
dark as shit.
he wasn't producing as much as he was in the 80s. Those actors had kind of started doing some other shit. Like Dan Aykroyd started doing like family Christmas movies for a while and whatever. And, like Jim Carrey and Mike Myers were the new faces of comedy in the 90s, and then other things, they popped up, like Bill Murray did What About Bob and Groundhog Day. You got Grumpy Old Men came in the 90s.
Grumpy
But,
old men.
when you were a kid, when we were kids in the 90s, we weren't, hankering to watch Grumpy Old Men.
No.
Like, looking back on it now, it's hilarious and it's a great movie. But at the time, like, same with What About Bob, when it came out in 96 or whatever. We were 12, 13. I didn't give a shit about What About Bob. It wasn't funny to us yet. Half Baked was always pretty fucking funny. Hot Shots was always pretty fucking funny.
Oh, yeah.
But when Ace Ventura and all those came out, we were young and perfect. Just that was perfect. I don't know about you, but I loved Ace Ventura. I loved
it was great.
Oh, me and my friends made our parents insane talking like that all the time.
Alrighty then.
Fuck, dude. And then when we started talking like Beavis and Butthead, they would have given anything for us to go back to Ace Ventura. Because that was bad for parents, man. Ooh, shit.
Yeah, Beavis and Butthead was a problem.
Yeah, 90s. Oof. Boy.
No, and I think the other thing too is you think about like you say, who's the audience for these movies? Because you could argue like they're all over the place, right? Like Grumpy Old Men was not for us as like 13-year-olds,
No.
And then there were some real like niche comedies. Like Groundhog Day is a niche comedy. What About Bob had like limited appeal, But then
But they were both definitely made for like adults, like 30-somethings.
Yes.
You
go to the aughts and like who are those? I feel like they identified an audience and then just swung for the fences. at
Well, I
this
think,
one
yeah,
particular audience, and so that's why I think everything is like tonally similar. In
but
addition to having a lot of the same people.
the thing about what Apatow, the stuff Apatow did, I think he cracked the code for a more mass appeal comedy that wasn't juvenile. Because everything, like, okay, like Superbad, right? Yeah, like, yeah, primarily it's aimed at teens because it's about teenagers, but also it's definitely for adults to remember when they were teenagers.
Right.
Like, the thing that trips me out about that movie is I remember the first time I saw it when Michael Cera accidentally goes into the Coke party room,
Oh God.
and I
It's the
remember
same.
identifying with him, right? And like how awkward that feels to realize you're in a room of people doing something you never done, and that you don't belong there, you
Yeah,
know.
you're out of your depth.
And then I remembered seeing it again later, and I definitely was on the other side. And identified with the older fucks in the room who are now young to me because I'm old, and they were like 20 something.
Oh God,
that,
that
that's
scene.
that is one of my favorite scenes when he starts singing.
What is that? What song do they make him sing?
Oh God, it's
These
like an R&B.
eyes
All
are crying.
crying, yeah.
These eyes have seen a lot
I've
of love.
love, but I've never seen a love like I haven't you
Like
before.
why that song?
I don't know, but that's what made it so fucking funny. And like the dudes are all coked out and grinding their teeth and like humming along with it. Fucking great, dude. David Krumholtz is there.
Yes, yes, he is.
I love David Krumholtz. First thing I ever saw him in was in Slums of Beverly Hills. Did you ever see that one?
No,
That's a great, great movie.
I saw. Isn't he in Adam's Family Values?
Yeah, yeah. He was
That's where I saw him.
he was the little kid that Christina Ricci was into. Yeah, so I guess that's the first thing I ever saw him in. Well, I didn't realize it at the time. But yeah, like his comedies just really do appeal to a wide range of people. You know, Knocked Up. I don't think he did that. Did he do that? He did
I
that,
think
right?
he
Yeah, he
did.
did that.
Yeah.
He did that. That still holds up, and it changes as you get older. That one, the way
Oh
you
yes.
it changes a lot, and I imagine for you it's real different too after having kids.
Yeah, it's funny all the stuff they're describing about like that movie does a pretty good job of showing you like the less glamorous side of pregnancy and child rearing. And when you're watching as a young person, you're like, oh, gross. All the stuff they're describing, that sounds awful. Then having gone through it, you watch it and you're like, yep, I remember that. Yep, that was gross. I went through that. Oh, yeah, that sucked. It's
Have
just
you
a
ever
totally
seen the
different trip.
Have you ever seen the follow up? This is 40.
I have seen This Is 40.
How do you feel about that one? Because that's,
I
whew,
mean, I didn't like it as much, but it was funny. That was another one where the jokes are funny, but also you're just doing a lot of like, yep, been there, done that. Yep, that happens to me.
so the 90s were just a little more focused. Like comedies were more narrowly focused on demographics. There were niche comedies,
Yeah, very like
offbeat comedies.
plot driven.
Yeah, yeah, and a lot of comedies made for people in the 30 to whatever 50, I guess, demographic. You know, like My Cousin Vinny, and I guess you could say Big Lebowski too. I mean, what is that? That's a comedy, right?
Ah, yeah, sure. But again, it's like, I mean, would you call the Coen brothers auteurs?
I guess, yeah.
They have a pretty distinct style. You know that their films are very very much theirs. So yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. It just doesn't. It's definitely a funny movie, but it doesn't immediately come to mind when you say like name comedies from the '90s. Like I don't know that The Big Lebowski comes to mind before all that other stuff.
You know, another dark one from the 90s?
What's that?
Gross Point Blank.
Oh yeah, that movie's fucking weird.
I loved that movie. I watched that one a lot. I love dark movies. I love dark comedies, but I don't know, something I think that was it too. Like when those alt comedies started coming around, I think we were, I don't know about you, but I was getting past my teen angst because I was no longer a teen, and I guess the angst just starts to leave the more you work. You just kind of get numb. And I was totally ready for comedies like that. You know, they
Right.
were easy. They're like digestible in a good way. You know, they're not shitty. You know, they're not milk toasty. You know, but they're, like we said, they're really, really rewatchable. And the ones that you watched early on when you were, you know, early in the aughts, it felt great to watch them again. Like 10 years later, it's like going back. It's like listening to a song, you know, a comforting old song. Like when you're sick, putting Anchorman on is pretty cool. You know, it's comforting. I think it's a mixture of who we were and what ages we were when we saw 90s comedies for the first time. And the same goes for comedies from the aughts. And like you said, how we watched them. You know, because
Yeah.
the comedies you watched over and over again as a kid were probably the ones that your parents bought or taped. You know, like in the aughts, we finally got to watch what we wanted to watch.
Yeah, but at the
All the
same
time.
time, if you were a kid in the aughts, I don't think your parents were bringing home Wedding Crashers.
Yeah, but
You
we
know?
weren't. Like, you know, we graduated high school in '01.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, I understand that. It's just
I mean,
think
our specific window.
the whole tone shifted, and like
It did, for sure.
they
Yeah.
saw that like the people like us were growing up and becoming like independent in the aughts, and they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna make movies for these people, and then you just got this whole fucking parade of stuff that we that we loved.
And, you know, frankly, I think a lot of them were just better. You know, like something like So I Married an Axe Murderer, I think is intended to have a pretty broad appeal, right? But it's just not as funny as some of those Apatow movies, I don't think. You know, it's a matter of taste,
Yeah,
of course. It's
I
definitely a
I
matter
hear
of
ya.
taste. But I'm trying to think of the blockbusters, you know, from the 90s that made a ton of money and like everyone saw. Like fucking
American
Austin
Pie.
Powers. Yeah, American Pie is definitely one of them, but everyone saw Austin Powers.
Austin
Like that movie
Powers
was
was
so
big.
fucking annoyingly everywhere. I can't imagine a movie that dumb even coming out in the aughts. Like think about it. Like Mike Myers it's a certain flavor of comedy, and it's a very goofy kind of comedy. And pretty juvenile in a lot of ways. In every way. And really in the sequels in every possible way.
It's bordering on like it's a spoof. It's like Hot Shots territory almost.
Almost,
For
but
spy
not.
movies.
Yeah, but in a whole different. I don't know. There's a It's almost like a stage play. There's a detachment to it. You know, whereas Hot Shots, there's an earnestness to it, which makes it even funnier. Like Airplane, like other slapstick movies. Austin Powers is more like a send up. You know, like an
Yeah.
homage, like a comedic homage.
God,
I don't know.
Hot Shots.
I'm trying to think of movies like because in the '90s too, Robin Williams started making dramas.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah.
But he did do Mrs. Doubtfire. Again, kind of dark. When you think of the premise, it's a little fucked up and weird.
Yeah.
Everyone.
And again,
I
like
gotta
a very
say.
specific, like plot heavy scenario.
Yeah.
You know? Like, just
And then
that's
again-
what drove it.
on the other end of the spectrum, the dumb end, Tommy Boy. Like just pure goofy dumb shit. And again, two dudes, just two dumb dudes.
Yeah, that
just
one's
being
pretty
dumb dudes.
close to what we wound up enjoying in the aughts. It's a lot like Tommy
Yeah.
Boy.
And a lot of people like Tommy Boy. That was a pretty
funny
popular movie. That was really popular. Anyone could really watch that, you know, any age, and they'd find something to. It's the physical comedy from Chris Farley and David Spade too, for that matter.
Oh yeah.
I mean, fat guy in a little coat. Who the fuck does not laugh
Who
at fat
hasn't-
guy in a little coat?
who
the
hasn't
first time?
done that?
Or done? Yeah, I know I have as a fat fuck. I've done it. You know, it's there's some scenes I would I would every time I watch that movie, I'm happy about it. I remember my wife and I watched it in a hotel in Vegas one time. I hadn't seen it in years, and it was one of those like we needed a break, and it just came on one of the channels. I'm like, yeah, I guess we'll watch Tommy Boy. And it was fucking great. And I always forget that Brian Dennehy's his father in the beginning.
That's right.
And that's always a great thing. And I always forget about that part where David Spade's hairpiece comes off.
Oh God.
It's so good. It's so good. It's a great movie. But yeah, definitely a different flavor. I don't know. Would you say the aughts comedies are definitively better?
I don't know that they're definitively better, but I know I like them more, just because.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I think they hit on a formula. They had a very clear idea who they were for, and then you also had a lot of these people that you liked, and you weren't necessarily just waiting, looking to see what this next movie was going to be. You were like, oh, it's the new Paul Rudd comedy. It's the new. Yeah. Seth Rogen movie that's coming out, and you just kind of knew that it was going to be funny because you liked the last 5 that he made.
Yeah, there was a falling off at some point, but I don't.
Oh, sure.
It wasn't a sharp one. I don't remember like a bunch of bad Apatow movies coming out. You know, I think he just started producing shit more.
Right.
And also, I just want to mention that even with all that said, even the 2000s still had plenty of weed comedies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like we've said, Pineapple Express a couple times. That was kind of almost a little bit of a tribute to weed movies, almost.
Yeah, it was like a weed action movie.
But, you know, they had, Grandma's Boy is
Yeah.
kind of a weed movie.
Definitely.
I'd say that's a weed comedy. Harold and Kumar, the first one came out in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second one did too, but Harold and Kumar go to White Castle. That was a college staple too, especially because we went to school like 20, 30 minutes from a White Castle.
What year did Beer Fest come out?
Oh, Beer Fest.
Beer Fest is great.
Beer Fest is fucking broken list. Super Troopers definitely came out in the aughts, right?
Aught. Yeah, I think that came first, so Beer Fest came shortly after.
Oh, Beer Fest came out in 2006.
I had that one on
6.
DVD. I watched the shit out of that.
Yeah. I watched that a lot. That and Super Troopers, man. All my stoner friends love Super Troopers. Oh my God, the scene, just for the beginning scene. Because that's all you pretty much made it through. Everyone paid rapt attention through the opening scene, and then you started talking more and more. And then you never saw the ending, really. I guess we've been lucky. The 80s comedies, I mean, I don't have a list in front of me, but just thinking of them, I think a lot of teen stuff.
Yeah.
Think of like Ferris Bueller. You know, I think of like those raunchy stupid teen movies, like those Porky. Well, Porky's was, I think, 70s.
Was it?
I think that was a little further back, but you know, shit like those ski school movies.
Yeah.
But I definitely always think of Bachelor Party. All right, you're right. Porky's was 81. so pretty far back, but still
If
80s.
you look it up,
totally.
it literally says Porky's is a 1981 sex comedy.
Sex comedy. Yeah,
Sex
that's
comedy.
for sure. It was a perverted fucking weird movie. All right, so let's look it up real quick. Fuck it, we have the internet. Best 1980s comedies. What do you think? What was your favorite? Just off the top of your head without looking.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, would you call that a comedy? Science fiction comedy?
You ask me that, and my brain leans no, but I said it.
Yeah. All right.
Fast Times
I
at
might have to
Ridgemont
eat
High.
my words. There's some really great comedies from the 80s, I guess. And there have to be, because we talked about some of the actors that were making comedies in the 80s and shit. Like, right at the top here, I mean, love it or hate it, the first Police Academy came out in the 80s. The first Vacation movie, you know.
Oh,
National Lampoon's. Yeah, Vacation. Stripes. Trading Places.
Stripes is great. Trading Places is great.
Both classic. Caddyshack. I mean, fuck me.
Airplane.
They're calling 48 Hours a comedy. That's
a buddy
shocking
cop
to
movie.
me. Yeah, that's wild. Fletch, I mean, if you're in the
Never
mood.
saw Fletch.
I like it. I don't understand people who are super into it because there is a weird group of people who are, but I think they're mostly Kevin Smith fans who just are pretending. But
how about Revenge of the Nerds?
Revenge of the Nerds, another perverted one that you can never get away with now. Yeah. Summer Rental, the John Candy movie. That was funny. Top Secret. I love that movie. Do you like that movie?
Secret is great.
The movie's fucking hilarious. And the 80s also gave us Real Genius.
Yeah, they did.
Right? Speaking of young Val Kilmer being in comedies.
The scene in Top Secret, it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a movie when he's like he's being tortured. And they cut to him having a dream where he's like, "Oh, I'm here for the exam," and they're like, the exam's passed. You failed the semester." And he goes, "No." And then he realizes he's dreaming and he wakes up, but he's being whipped. And he looks back. He's like, "Oh, thank God."
It's so good. Yeah, that's very slapsticky. And it's hilarious. I love it.
God.
And then you had action comedies like Beverly Hills Cop, the first one, which was great. Back to School, which was a Rodney Dangerfield college comedy.
That was just on the TV the other day. Triple Lindy.
Yeah, dude, I love that movie. Weird Science, pervert comedy.
Oh God, yeah.
You know? Beetlejuice, that was 80s. Weekend at Bernie's, dark shit. Funny Farm. I love that stupid movie. I have a sauce. Me and my wife love that movie. It's as far as Chevy Chase movies go, it's one of the best, I guess.
Oh, dude, Spaceballs.
Spaceballs, yeah. Spaceballs.
Dude, the 80s were like the golden age, huh?
They had a lot. Well, like you said, the actors that were making comedies, there were some great ones, man. You know, even if they did fall off later. I never saw Three Men and a Baby. You know that? Never saw it. Uncle Buck.
You never saw that?
No. Uncle Buck, John Candy again.
Oh, Uncle Buck was great. The Burbs.
The Burbs. Oh, I love the Burbs. Love the fucking Burbs. Hate the Money Pit. Love the Burbs. Howard the Duck. No.
Howard the Duck.
Now, would you call Back to the Future a comedy?
Oh, we've explored
talked
this
about
very
this?
question before. Yeah. Yes, I think technically it is, but like it doesn't like it doesn't come to mind when you ask me to talk about 80s comedies. It's a great movie. I love it, but it's like to me it's like sci-fi.
Yeah, but I know 'cause like Ghostbusters is kind of too. Like I kind of feel like they have the same amount in them. You know?
Yeah, I think Ghostbusters for me seems more like a comedy because of who's in it. You know?
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Like Bill Murray.
Yeah. I guess the same goes for action comedies too. Like
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah, like I feel like that's a little more on the even though it's Eddie Murphy, I feel like that's a little more on the action-y side. I would call Crocodile Dundee more of a comedy.
Crocodile Dundee's great.
It was in the 80s. I've seen that a embarrassing number of times. Teen Wolf. Fucking Teen Wolf, baby. Yeah. Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh man, I love Little
With
Shop
Rick
of Horrors.
Moranis. Yeah. Gremlins came out in the 80s.
Okay, is
That
that
was a horror comedy.
or a horror movie?
I think the second one is definitely a comedy. The first one is, I think, more of a
The
horror
second one's
movie.
insane.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that one more, believe it or not.
You've seen that
Here's
one
one
more
your
'cause there's a
sisters would
Rambo
love.
reference.
You're damn right there is. Your sisters love this one. Return to the Living Dead Part 2. That was definitely 80s.
Oh,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ. Monster Squad.
see that doesn't come to mind as a comedy.
Yeah.
It's just
Neither
a
does
goofy-
American Werewolf in London, but
Goofy horror movie.
Return to the Living Dead. You know, Major League, like we talked about that when we did baseball movies. Yeah, that's definitely a comedy. That was funny as fuck. That was good. That was good. Yeah, man, there was a lot of great comedies in the Naked Gun. The first Naked Gun came out in the 80s, I think.
But and like, not to take away anything from this list, there's a ton of great stuff on there. Tons, way more than I even remember.
Yeah,
but
there's a
again,
lot of shit we haven't mentioned either.
they're all over the place.
Yeah,
All over the
yeah.
place. And I think that's just what I keep going back to.
And
you had
also,
this-
you can't forget that, like, you had all those teen movies in the 80s too. Those John Hughes
like
movies.
16 Candles.
Yeah, those John Hughes and John Hughes adjacent movies.
Breakfast Club.
You know? Yeah, plus all the shitty, like, B comedies. Like we said, the Ski School movies and the raunchy crap.
Oh, like when
you know?
did Better Off Dead come out?
Better Off Dead, I don't remember. I
That's
don't
it's
know.
80s, I think.
It has to be. It has to be. So I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Who had it best? Who had it best as like a teenager going to movies and seeing movies for the first time? Who had it best? What decade?
I don't know. God, it's tough. That's tough.
I think we were in the sweet spot. I think we were good because, like,
In the
I feel like I feel like we got to go see a lot of comedies in the late 90s in the theater that were new if we wanted. And plus we had rental stores. You know, we had
Right.
video rental places so we could rent everything from the 80s and the 70s and even the early 90s, you know, to our heart's content. And then we also got to, like you said, have DVDs and our own shit when the big comedy boom of the aughts came. I think we were in the sweet spot for
That's
once,
the
man.
Zone.
We were
And
in the zone.
And that kind of, if that's how you're going to look at it, that's kind of the high point, because like I don't look at the 2010s and think like oh man, what a great year for comedy. I'm sure there's some good stuff that came out, but not on the level of what came out in the aughts.
It's true.
That's like
And-
the top of the bell curve.
And we have to mention that we were around to witness the pinnacle of comedy in 1989 with the release of Look Who's Talking. Because
That piece of
what the
garbage.
fuck is funnier than Bruce Willis as the inner monologue of a baby being raised by Kirstie Alley and John Travolta? I can't
Jesus.
think of anything I'd rather watch more.
I saw that.
I've seen it.
We all saw that.
I've seen it. I've seen the sequels. God damn it! You know.
Oh,
You know
Look
who?
Who's Talking Now.
Yeah. Look Who's Talking 2, TOO, and Look Who's Talking Now. Look Who's Talking 2 added the sonorous voice of Roseanne Barr to the
God.
mix. So that as another baby. So that was
That's
a lot
right.
of fun. But Look Who's Talking Now was kind of nice because
Was that
the
the
kids
dog?
shut the fuck up and you heard the dogs, which was Danny DeVito, and I forget who the female dog was. I want to think what the fuck's her name? She's real pretty, elderly, stately woman. Helen Mirren. I feel like it might have been Helen Mirren. Oh shit. Yeah, and then wow, man, there was a lot of comedies in the 80s. Fuck.
It's like all they made.
Well, I'm looking too. Like, also the Cheech and Chong movies. Like, most of them came out in the 80s. You had that stupid spat of dog comedies like Beethoven and K9, and with John Belushi tried to be a thing. And oh God, I don't know. We had to rent all this shit and find out that they weren't good. It's so much. It's so much. I don't understand. Look who's talking.
Oh, the Birdcage.
Go watch Look Who's Talking.
What year did the Birdcage come out?
No, that was definitely 90s.
That's the 90s.
Do you know who was in Look Who's Talking? Speaking of,
who?
One of our actors that we like to point out.
Peter Stormare.
Elias Koteas.
Oh, Elias Koteas. Okay.
Elias Koteas. I was just watching Weeds again, the show, and Peter Stormare showed up as an insane chef.
Dino Velvet. I've seen that episode. I didn't watch Weeds, but I've seen that episode. They all apply for jobs at that hotel.
Yeah.
And he's just like, make me this sauce. You know, he's just like,
it's the season they're on the run. Yeah.
He wants them to be a dishwasher.
Yeah, you do remember it. That's funny.
I don't know why I remember so much about that episode. I saw it one time.
And he was like in 2 episodes as the same character, and that was it. That was all he was hilarious. Dino Velvet. You know what? Yeah, I want to admit something too while we're talking about it. We're talking about comedies, and we're talking about the 80s. Like, we're not going to dig deep into it, but there is a comedy from the 80s that people seem to adore and remember with such great fondness, and I can't stand it.
What is it?
It's the Three Amigos.
Oh, yeah, that's goofy as hell. I
hate it. I've tried, too. Like, I've tried. Like, I really tried, and I don't like it. I just don't think it's funny. I like Martin Short. I like Steve Martin, you know.
Steve Martin.
Mostly like Chevy Chase.
Steve Martin's amazing.
I love The Jerk. That's a great fucking movie.
Yeah, The Jerk is pretty good.
It kills me. Every time I watch it, it kills me. Fucking, yeah. All right, cool. Well, I guess we did. We were in there. We were the golden zone for fucking comedies.
I think so. Yeah, it was just like, what a run. Not a dud in there. You know, some are better than others, but they're all pretty good.
Yeah, there were a lot of shitty ones, but they were easy to skip because there was a lot of good ones.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of good ones. All right, awesome. Thank you.
Hey, man,